addicted to, and what did this world do to you? What will it take to get you through, and how long has this had a hold on you?
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Addicted2. We're going to get connected here. So I got a good friend of mine, Harold. And I've known Harold for, how long have we known him?
I was thinking that on the way down here tonight, Sean. I've been out in Calgary for 22 years. So I would think 21 years.
It's got to be. Like, it's been, because when we worked at that company, we won't say.
We won't say.
And we were full into it then. But
Absolutely.
It's got to be 21 years.
Yeah, it's about, I was thinking that, 21 years. And it's funny how it revolves, because 21 years ago and now a bunch of us are back together, working together almost. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. Right?
And it is funny because what I was thinking about today that I haven't thought about in years, I've got 12 years in, was I came to work on your air conditioning in Okotoks.
Yeah.
So I know that was 12 years ago, and it was probably right around now, May.
Yeah, I think it was.
Around May or June, from what I remember. And you were selling the house, and then I said, well, I got some problems, and I joined a group, and you're like, well, what kind of group is that? And I said, I got to be I'm in the 12-step thing, and you're like, me too. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And then, because I didn't know you were in it, and you didn't know I was in it. And then here we are, like 12 years later after that.
No, I know.
I guess we had 10 years of beating it up.
I know. It was pretty funny. You were saying that about, I'm making some changes, and...
Yeah, well, I had to.
So, exactly. And then when you said, well, I'm doing this, I think you didn't know what I was going to think, right? Of, what is this guy, right?
Well, you're nervous, in the beginning, and it's kind of embarrassing to tell people.
Of course it is. And that's why it's cool, like the look in your face, almost relief, like, oh, that's cool. Because, as we go through life, we find guys like ourselves that have found something that makes us better, and makes us feel better. And,
we're almost ashamed to admit it.
Almost ashamed. But when we meet one of the other guys like us, it's cool. It's like, hey, we got something else in common, right? And to me, we're a pretty close group, all of us together that are going through addictions, right?
Well, we're tradesmen,
help, right? We're tradesmen,
and
there's a little bit of that in the trades.
A little bit. There's quite a bit. But it affects all the different walks of life, and it's funny that you say that now, because here we are in 2025. What a difference 10 years makes! Like coming out of COVID, and all of that, and now. It's a different world, and there is not really that much shame anymore. People are saying about addictions, we need to do something. There's more of an attitude of, those people are sick. I'm sick, but I'm not on the street, and neither are you. So we kind of represent a little bit of hope, right? I think
absolutely. And since COVID, a lot of it, I think, mental health and addictions has really been at the forefront of a lot of people are coming out there, because they hit tough times in COVID. And a lot more people, I think, came out because they hit bottoms during that time that they probably didn't hit before, and didn't know where to turn. And, the addiction, the spotlight on addictions, it's probably higher than I've ever seen it. It's out there everywhere, and people are they're open to it, right? I think mostly, like you'd already touched on, it was almost like there's that little bit of embarrassment that I think it's brought up in us too. We're brought up as, if we can't fix ourselves, we're fucked up. We should be able to fix ourselves, right? That's how I was brought up, right?
Well, yeah, we're kids of the 70s. I was talking about it to someone, like I've never been diagnosed with ADHD or whatever, but there's a little bit
guaranteed
of that in there, and I think that's a common trait amongst us.
Yeah.
And basically in the 70s was like, what's your problem? Hey, get over it, snap out of it and smarten up. We don't have time for this. And so you kind of learn to cope
Yeah.
the best way you can. And then when you find the drink or the drug, it's like, oh,
Here we go.
here we go. Because now where have you been all my life? I don't have to feel anymore like an idiot.
You know, that ADHD and that, it's funny because I've got it guaranteed. I know I do, right?
But you've never been.
Never been diagnosed. I was just a badass. That's what, right?
Yeah.
He's just a bad kid, right? He'll never go anywhere. You know what I mean? They just shoved you aside type of thing, and he's just a bad kid. Now they know what it is. Now it's another thing. It's out there, right? I think maybe too much. Now it's every other kid has got it. They diagnose them and give them whatever, right?
And they might be going overboard with it. I mean, everybody's got, this generation's got anxiety. Anxiety, not to make light of it, but today they've got you got the cell phones. Well, they've got social media. Well, you're in my day, if someone found out at the high school that you did something over the weekend that wasn't, you felt like the whole world knew about it because everybody was talking about it in your world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by Monday, you were already stigmatized or ashamed of whatever it was that happened. And the whole town knew about it, kind of a thing, right?
It's a good thing they didn't have social media.
They probably would have got shot. Right?
Oh, it would have been trouble. But things have changed. We've all changed, right? From that day of, I was just thinking of that today, driving up here today, and thinking that, one of the times when I was on, I'd be on a run or whatever, was with you.
Yeah, you didn't show up.
Exactly.
I was phoning your wife and everything, and then and that was what it would be like. I could be. I wasn't. That's one of the things nowadays of being clean and sober is I'm accountable, right? I don't miss those things that I said I'd be, right? Yeah.
And the prime example.
Unless you had a good reason.
I had a good reason then.
No, I know. Well, we all did that. I'm a runner too, right? If something happens, I'm gone.
And that's what I needed. For me, addictions run deep in my family and, with my parents drinking, right?
Yeah.
But for me, that was just, that coping mechanism. And it never went away, right? And I was accountable for a long time, and then it just took over that I wasn't accountable anymore, right? I couldn't show up on time. I wouldn't show up for you. I wouldn't show up for my family. Things like that, right?
And even when you do, we were talking about it last night, even when you're there in body, you weren't present mentally.
No.
You know what I mean? Because we're thinking about, and I think that's why people struggle to get cleaned up, because they don't know what to do with their time. Because we put so much time into, we'll work, but and then by the morning we're quitting, and by 2-3 o'clock, I remember I can't remember the fellow's name. We don't have to mention it. By 2 o'clock, holy jeez, he was already he was already sitting at the pub, or in his mind he should have been, and he'd be getting upset like if he got a job after 1 o'clock. And we could all kind of relate to that, anyways. Maybe not to that extreme, but yeah, he was like, he let it be known that he was not happy if he had to work past 1:30 because he was ready to pack up his tools. His day was done, and he should have been sitting at the bar, right?
But that's the way it was. That was exactly the way it was with me too at the end. Like when I was not present with you at that time, I would go to work just about every day, not every day because some nights, they ran one into the other.
Yeah.
But I would get up every morning almost, look in the mirror and say, you're not using today, right?
Yeah, me too.
And I'd go to work. Just, I was good. I was strong. I was ready to go. I had to have a great morning. But my, at noon, my dealer would start answering his phone. So the day was good till about 11 o'clock, and I'd start looking at my watch. What time is it, right? And 11:30, making some calls. He wouldn't answer. As soon as he answered, I was gone. That was it.
And then there goes the night.
There goes the night or the next day or whatever. It runs, when I can't believe now that I was like that, right? That it ran my life like that, like every morning getting up and going, you're good, you're strong, you're not going to do it. And then how easy, we were gone.
But the thing that amazes me about you is you stayed married through all this. I mean, you've been married for how long?
Just turned 45 years.
45 years. And in today's day and age, that's a miracle, even if you don't have addiction. So the fact that you were able to, overcome and get through all that and maintain that whole relationship and then, keep it together, my hat off to you, my friend, because that is no easy feat.
Well, I would say that would be the hat off to my wife, right?
Yeah, well, no doubt.
For sure. Because she, I've got 2 boys, right? We've got 2 boys together, and she looked after 3 boys, right? The 2 sons and myself. Because I was, from a young age all the way through, like I've been 17, this month I'll be clean and sober 17 years.
17 years.
Congrats. So, and I'm 66 in a month. So figure it out. I was out there for a long time, right?
Well, same as me. If I do the math, I'm 59, 12. So you got it a couple years before.
Yeah, 49 I was or whatever. Right. So, I mean, so she put up with a lot. And to her, she was the rock. I wasn't present for a lot. And I say a lot of times part of getting clean and sober is changing your life and being honest and willing to change, right? And I've always considered myself an honest person, but I stole a lot of that I stole from them, right? Because I wasn't present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a lot. So I definitely wasn't honest with that part of it. There was not being there for her, not being there for the kids, for a lot of things, Christmas is like, she used to say, like Christmas is now the last 16 years, I guess 16 Christmases have been the best. Like she says she used to dread it, just dread Christmas time, right? Because, I was drinking all the time then, but Christmas was way more, right? And wrecked Christmas Eves, drunk and picking fights and all that stuff. And she put up with all that. But believe me, at the end, and that's one of the reasons that drove me into sobriety, right, and getting clean, was she'd had enough, right? Enough of enoughs, right? Too many sorries. And really, I wasn't a person to say sorry because I was so selfish.
None of us.
I didn't give a fuck, right?
Well, because it's everybody else's fault. It couldn't be mine or yours.
But right. So at the end,
I say that sarcastically,
but it's true. But
it's true,
at the end, it was her that pushed me into this. I was the same old thing of, I got in a lot of trouble, over the years. Right?
Can I just ask you, was that the straw that broke the camel's back? Did she tell you, listen, you got to do something? Or did you come to that realization that you just couldn't do it anymore?
No, of course I didn't.
No.
Left to my own devices. It wasn't up to me. It was up to her. She said that. And she said when, many times it was going back and forth and she was going to kick me out or she was going to leave, stuff like that, right? And, and I didn't have any emotions left. It didn't matter to me, right?
Oh, we're numb.
Yeah, we're numb. And it didn't matter. It was like, here's the woman I've loved for years, but it didn't matter to me, right? It just didn't matter. And then she went away for work to Lethbridge, I think it was, for a few days, and said, when I get back, you better have this figured out. Either help, you better have asked for help and figured out what's going on, or you're gone, right?
Yeah, so it was the ultimatum was there.
The ultimatum was there, so I made some calls. I was still using, right? Because she's gone, so, and I phoned a few places. I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do, right?
Well, you wouldn't know.
I didn't know, right? So I was looking on online, I guess, of places, and I don't know if we can mention any places on here or that. Does it matter?
Whatever. I mean, I'm not endorsing.
You know, I phoned. I looked in one in there, and it was 1835 house, right? Recovery Acres, it was called.
Yeah. So we're in Calgary, so we might as well put the word out there because I don't.
Yeah, we're in Calgary. So, anyways, and it's a great place. I know lots of people that have gone through there now, and it's fantastic, right? Yeah. But I'm looking, and all of a sudden it clicked to me. I'd done some work there. We'd done some work on removing, rooftops for a roofing replacement or something, and I went like, "Fuck, I ain't going to that place, right?" I'm not like one of those guys. Right?
I remember doing a service call at one of them downtown.
Yeah,
and Buddy thought that I was cutting in the line because the door doesn't open till 9, and he was swaying outside, and he was just about to turn. Like I could tell that I was not going to be his friend, and he was going to swing at me because he was convinced in his mind, like he was right out of it, right? That I was cheating, cutting in front of the line, and he wasn't going to have it. So I'm, I'm making phone calls, pounding on the door, and I'm saying, "Open the door," not really understanding because I'm still in my addiction. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But I was, I'm thinking, and that's denial. Like I'm not as bad as those guys, right? So that's crossed off the list. There. I'm not going there. So now I'm looking at these other ones, and I see Fresh Start, right? I see a thing on Fresh Start. So I phone, and this woman answers, and her name was Kathy, right? She's a great woman.
You still remember that?
Absolutely.
17 years later.
Always remember it because she got me in there, right? I told her what was happening, and she's going, "Well, you know what? You're too late. We've just started a group right now, and we just started on the Monday, and this was like Sunday. I phoned her or something like that. She says, "Are you using?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Well, you got to come in here. You got to be at least a couple days clean and sober. Come in Wednesday morning." So okay, and I talked to her on there, and it just clicked, right? Don't want to do that. It just clicked with me with her. Just her voice gave me some hope or whatever. So I go in there Wednesday morning, right? And I go in there, and she's like, "Oh, who are you?" And I told her who it was, and she goes, "Oh, you made it." And I said, "Well, yeah, I told you I was coming. I'd be here Wednesday."
She probably hears that.
She said, "You don't know how many people." But not that many people make it up the stairs, right? They won't come in.
Yeah, but she gets 10 phone calls a day, right?
Yes. So, and that was one of the first things I thought, well, I said I'd be here. Of course I'm here, even though I was using right up to then and I wasn't supposed to be. But, they let me in, and all I could do was the day program. But you know what? It's exactly what I needed. It worked for me, right? I looked in there, and I still had that chip on my shoulder, like I'm not one of you guys, but I'm here, and I'll get the heat off, and my wife will come home, and I'll be in there, and everything's good, right? Nothing to it.
Yeah, a couple of weeks later, this will blow over, and
like always, right? It'll blow over. Well, I was in there, and I realized, I was one of them, right? I needed to be where I needed to be. That's just it's how. Lucky, I think, and at the time, I really look back at it now, and I remember thinking, wow, it's over, right? Like my ride is over. Finally, and I was quite happy that it was happening, right? I figured that's it.
That you found an answer.
I'd found an answer, and now that's it. And now all this suffering, all the pain that I've done to myself and others, maybe it's over. It wasn't, right? I finished that program, but I did relapse a few times.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. But you know what? As they always say, you hear a lot, the seed was planted, right? I knew what I was. I learned a lot about my addictions, like more than I'd ever thought, right? And it's not just, I thought it was all me, right? It was all my fault for what I was doing, right? Not realizing that it is a disease, and addiction's strong, and it takes over. It's not us that are doing these things. It's our drug of choice that's making us do those things, right?
Well, I've got a bit of a theory. And just to put it in a nutshell, basically, I believe everything has an opposite. Male, female, night, day, hot and cold. And I believe in the higher power, whatever you want it to be. You just have to, like me, I use the sun a lot. It seems to give me strength. But I also believe that there's an equal and just as powerful lower power. And I believe that they say you can't create energy, but I think you can harness it. But it's like AC voltage. There's a positive, there's a negative. And I think you can definitely, that thing that you can't pinpoint in the middle of your soul that pushes you to do stuff is that negative energy. And you can call it whatever you want. But I believe that is what is pushing you. And as soon as you open that porthole, you're done. And that's why I do believe that they say no human power can beat it alone, because it's not tangible. It's not, you can't take a bat and open the door and hit it and go, oh, well, I killed it off.
Yeah.
And it's always there waiting. That's just my own belief that I've kind of come up with this. And I think whether it's drugs, sex, rock and roll, chocolate, whatever it is, as soon as you have abused whatever it is, the gambling, whatever, you can't, they say a cucumber can't go back to being a pickle.
Yeah.
And so then I don't know what the reason is. But as soon as you cross that line and you partake in that behavior again, you're opening up a conduit for that negative energy. And we can call it a disease. I mean, I'm not going to dispute any of that, but I think that's basically how it works. You're basically a ground, and you're just flowing that energy. So if you choose to get connected into the higher power and abstain and try and work on yourself, you feed off that, and it's just like a battery. If you don't do that type of work, it's just like a drill. Well,
Yeah.
as soon as the battery drains on anything, it's dying. And I think that's what happens to us. And it's only my own theory.
We need, you touched on the higher power thing of, that's a tough thing to me. Like, I came in there to get help, right? Well, actually I went in to recovery to get the heat off, right? Yeah. But I found out that there was more to it, that I was a sick person, right? Disease sick wise, right? I was sick trying to get better, and I didn't know how to get better, right? I had a problem. I needed a solution. I didn't know what the solution was. I'd never seen it. Like it was a 12-step program in there, right? And they would read in there, and it's funny how things work. And people have been put in my life to keep me sober, clean and sober. I know they have. First of all, Kathy, you said, how do you remember her name? Because she's the first step in that, because something in her voice clicked with me and I liked it, right? It was soothing. It was like, there's hope. There's what it was. There was hope. And I could tell right through there talking to her. Energy. And there was hope. And then I go in there, and the counselor was Garth. And he hadn't done, and we clicked, and he used to read, and of course, and I'm in there, and I'm not one of those, right? So I'm sitting on the couch as far away from everybody, right?
Yeah.
But he's reading things, and my eyes are getting big, and he'd say, "What?" And I'd say, "Well, like, is that a trait of an alcoholic and an addict?" And he'd go, "What do you think?" Right? Because he could see, it was resonating with me. Because I'd never heard of this Alcoholics Big Book, right? Never heard of it in my life. Hadn't heard of the 12 steps or 12 traditions, never.
Which I've got to say is a little bit odd. And the only reason I say that is because I know you used to live in Vancouver, and so did I. Yeah. And I mean, we've seen it rampantly.
Yeah, but
we weren't like one of them.
No.
But I mean, I used to go down on Hastings Street all wound up, called it Mardi Gras. when everybody gets their checks at the end of the month, and it's just wild. Like, I mean, the sirens. I saw, a buddy get hit with the Narcan or whatever it is, and actually sit up and tell the person, "Thanks a lot, a-hole, you just ruined my buzz." Yeah. She's like, "No thanks required for saving your life." But I mean, I used to think that was funny.
Yeah,
because I was high too, and different. But I mean, you look at it now, and it's like
we look at it differently
10
now.
times worse even now.
Well, and now I don't look at it as funny, or I used to think of it as funny too, or look at those people, those moral degenerates, right?
How could you live like that?
And now I know that they've got no choice over that. That addiction has taken over. That
consumed.
They're done. They don't know anything different, right? And I've read a lot. I've watched a lot of TV shows, and the reaction from a lot of people are, look at these, like I say, degenerates, right? They should be put away. They should be shot. I've heard everything, right?
Yeah.
And they don't realize that they don't want to be like that.
No,
they don't want to be like that, but the drugs have taken over, or the alcohol has taken over, and they have no choice over it. And that's where, as we started off this tonight, of COVID, and of the not the spotlight, but so much more open about addictions and mental health and stuff, right? It
was so brutal, and worldwide.
People are learning more about it. They're paying attention. They're listening now, right? Whereas before it was just, look at that addict, look at that drunken bum, right? And, just like they were not worthy of being around. I look at it differently, because I used to think like alcoholic or drug alcoholic. Well, I'm not alcoholic because, I don't drink out of a paper bag and live under the bridge type of thing, like the people out of the Cobalt Hotel in Vancouver under the boulevard there, right?
But when we say that too, I mean, how many, I was thinking about this today for some reason too. And even my dad, when I was young, used to say, you listen to them guys, the Rolling Stones and all that, they're all drugged out and whatever, eh? And like, and so you're telling me that the people that I admire and follow are bad. But, I mean, because Elvis Presley was a clean addict, eh? Like, because he had short hair, and so was Hank Williams Jr. or Johnny Cash. I mean, all those guys were so much better because they had shorter hair and they're a little bit more respectable. But you look at the lives these guys led, it was the same thing. And it was they were getting, all the people that we, come to love as entertainers. The only reason they're not on the streets is because somebody picks them up and brings them to the hotel room. I mean, like, we've heard the stories, Motley Crue and everything else. When those guys are done off stage, Stones, everybody in the younger days, they were, nobody comes out of a big drunk looking real good. Like, you're messed up. You know what I mean? You're disheveled. You're not respectable. You can't speak. You pissed yourself. I mean, you fall down, you're bleeding, you're crying. Most of the time, something's wrong. Like, it goes good for a little bit, but then she goes downhill. Yeah. And you need help. Like, you can't, how many times I couldn't get the key in the door, and I'd say, well, I'll just rest here on the front doorstep. I mean, I passed out on picnic tables, you name it. Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, you're getting closer and closer to a cardboard box, buddy. You just don't know. Or
if you, in my case, I couldn't remember half the time.
Yeah, well, blackouts.
So often, and the funny thing with that, it's not funny, but I was blacking out from almost the first time I ever drank, right? From a real young age.
I didn't realize it.
And, so... But the thing is, here's another, and I laugh at it quite, this whole world of, alcohol has been legal for so long, right? But drugs, I'm not really classifying marijuana as a drug, right? To me, it's not a drug, right? But alcohol's fine, especially in the older people, It's fine. Go have a drink, but they still look down on someone smoking a joint or whatever. And I laugh at that. I'm thinking, are you kidding? Ask any cop what he would prefer, right? If someone, ask him what should be legal now, alcohol or pot. And any cop will tell you, guaranteed right now, they wouldn't even hesitate, right?
For sure. Because I'm not here to, as I've been saying on the past few shows, I'm just kind of gathering information. I'm not here to endorse or condemn any one way of getting sober, being sober, or anybody's lifestyle, or say that you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. I mean, it's there. Some people smoke pot and, they can function. Some people can have a few drinks and they can function. Right on. I just can't.
You can't. No.
Even with the podcast, here I am. Man, I'm booked up, we're recording probably about 10 shows in the next 5 days. Why? Because, why would I do just one? I can't do one of anything.
Yeah. The stigma of alcohol and drugs is so different, right? Especially with with the older generation, right? You're talking about, with the Rolling Stones compared to Hank Williams, right?
But they were all doing the same thing.
Same thing. And this is what I learned in recovery was your drug of choice. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol, if it's cocaine, if it's crack, if it's meth. It doesn't matter. All those thoughts in your head, right? All those things are the same. We feel the same, right?
We do.
And that's the big thing about it. It really isn't. It's an addiction, right? And what that addiction is, you mentioned sex addicts or gambling or whatever else there is, right? It's there. It's in our minds, right? It takes over, and we can't stop. We need to realize that we got a problem before we can stop, right? I've heard that a long time ago, actually, because I went to counseling, and the counselor said, you have to realize you have a problem before you seek that solution, right?
But we make excuses and think, I've known I was an alcoholic for years. Even when I did clean up, people I worked with, well, you're not that bad. You got a truck. You go to work every day. You got a house, and I'm like, but you have no idea of the squirrels that are rolling around in the head. And was I doing my best? No, I was near the end. I'd be sleeping in the mechanical rooms or in the truck or whatever. Because I was left to my own devices. I didn't have a boss. You go to the office Monday morning, throw in some paperwork. The rest of the week, they didn't see you. I'd leave from home. And, you know how it is. As long as you're billing time, they don't know what you're doing in the office. And the customer, when he doesn't see you, you take off. You're going on the roof. No one's coming to check.
Well, we could hide, right? We could...
It's easy.
We know how to manipulate things and get away with things because we did it for a long time, and that the good thing about it, I don't have to do that anymore. That's freedom for me, right? Is as of today, as we talked about, coming up 17 years, it's been great, right? And I don't have to do that. I don't have to hurt like that anymore, right? I don't have to lie of where I was being, I don't have to shut my phone off so my wife can't get hold of me and, stuff like that. All those things. Don't have to do it. But you would have
had to face her too, and sooner or later.
Oh, there was always that sooner or later, but as long as there was some later there, because I still got some stuff here to do.
I know. Okay, well, that's it. We're out of time for this one, but then we're going to continue on. We'll get you coming back on the next week.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks. Everybody be safe out there.